Greetings and various assorted salutations. This is a unit tour for Unit 4 of our course in spring 2021, Imperialism and World War I, also sometimes called American Empire. This unit is going to take us out of the U.S. and looking at how the U.S. interacts with the outside world during the Industrial Revolution and gets us all the way up into the First World War. What we're going to be looking at is kind of how the Industrial Revolution forces the United States to gradually reconsider and in many cases abandon that isolationist policy. Because in order to see American foreign assets, corporate and whatnot, met, the U.S. has to look at addressing different things. This is also the unit where we have a lot of wars. We'll have the Spanish-American War, the Banana Wars, the Boxer Rebellion will at least be mentioned, and of course the one that's mentioned in the title, the Great War. Just to break down this unit is fairly streamlined. It's divided into two parts. We've got American Imperialism, and then the second part is the Great War. Imperialism will be what occupies the first week we're back from spring break. And then the Great War is a 2-week unit, partially due to the unit assessment. But we'll get to that in a moment. So to kick things off, there are 2 lectures for this unit. We've got the Introduction to Imperialism and America and the Great War. These 2 lectures serve as kind of overarching previews / coverage of a lot of the content we're going over. So it's recommended that you watch the American Imperialism and World War I, the Intro to Imperialism lecture first. I'd watch it fairly early on in the unit, and then when we get to the Great War one, I'd watch that one fairly early on in the unit. And they provide an overarching coverage of basically all of what we're studying. So I recommend starting with them. They'll help with the virtual student notebook, which is pictured here. The virtual student notebook, you guys know the drill. It's a thing you'll fill in. It's very vocab heavy because we're covering a lot of units, a lot of sections in the textbook. Just looking at the notebook here, you can see the sections are scrolling through. We've got a lot of key terms. They match up to sections in the textbook, 11.5, 11.6, 11.7. We've got a thing called World War I Basics, and this is going to look at kind of why does the Great War start, and little bits into here and there. Then World War I 12.1, looking at how we enter the war. We'll look at the home front during the war, and we'll look at the end of the Great War. Even though we're spending a fair amount of time on the Great War, we don't go into as much detail as perhaps everyone would like. But this will serve as an excellent introduction into a number of different topics. For assignments, in the part 1, we have yellow journalism and source analysis. You guys are going to be looking at some primary sources on yellow journalism, examples of yellow journalism, and examples of what isn't yellow journalism, so you can tell the difference between the two in this time period. We'll look at the Spanish-American War, which is where the United States will acquire the Philippines, Guantanamo Bay, and places like Puerto Rico. Additionally, we're going to have our first discussion assignment, our first formal discussion assignment. Let's take a look at that. We'll also learn about the Panama Canal. What this discussion assignment is you're going to be going through some different resources, and then you're going to make 2 posts. The first post, which will be due on an e-learning Friday, let's see here, April 9th, is going to be looking at, okay, you've looked at these sources, now put a discussion point in here. And then by the 16th, you're going to reply to someone else's posts. You should have plenty of posts to work with for replies, because this discussion will encompass all of my U.S. History 2 classes, all 6 sections of it. So you should have plenty of people to converse with on that second post. Do keep in mind you cannot view anyone else's posts until after you've made your first post. To make a post, what you do is after viewing these materials, you hit reply. Further instructions, you can watch this tutorial I've made on how to do discussion assignments. Getting in over here on the Great War, we've got the lecture video. We've got the main causes of World War I. This is an assignment that works you through why is there a World War I? What is a world war? Why does it happen at this specific time? There's a lot of variables that set up for a world war, but there's certain things that finally truly activate it. Why is it in this period? We'll have an assignment that looks at what's going on at home, what is happening with women, what's happening with African Americans, what's happening with industry and government management of the war. And then we have an assignment that looks at what is the end of the World War look like. It'll start implying how does this set the stage for the Second World War. The Second World War isn't something that's covered until you get to U.S. History 3. The unit assessment's actually probably going to be one of the big things, one of the more complicated assignments for this. What the unit assessment is instead of a test, you are putting together a PowerPoint or a slideshow. Usually, we're not too picky about the programs in my class, whichever program you're more comfortable with. But you're basically putting together a sort of scrapbook / breakdown of different aspects of the Great War. You've got the details of the requirement here. You need a title page. You need some slides about the war and different specific aspects of the war. You need to cite your sources. You're going to be using MLA. I have instructions on how to do that to turn this in. Essentially, this assignment won't unlock right away. It'll technically unlock on April 23rd. Or wait, no, it's due on April 23rd. It unlocks April 12th. So if you're looking for a breakdown of things, essentially, it'll unlock. And what you might find is as you're doing these assignments here, you can use information from those assignments to help you out with the unit assessment. And it is due at the end of the unit, April 23rd. But as for resources down here in the resources section, I've got the Panama Canal. The lecture videos are here. The glossary and the textbook, relevant textbook sections are here. You guys know the general resources. Just to touch on the unused materials, this is stuff that I didn't use in the course, but you might find it interesting. We've got all kinds of things. I have a VR weapons demonstration of what American troops are using in those trenches. There's some history of tank technology. There's some stuff on the Boxer Rebellion. There's an entire YouTube channel. Well, there's actually several YouTube channels that cover the Great War, but this particular one is one I like to use when I'm trying to build up my background information. This is a funny comedy sketch. If you remember the guy from the actor from Mr. Bean, they have a thing on trench warfare that shows kind of how absurd the Great War gets as the first industrial war. Also, if you really want an experience of what it's like to fight in World War I, we have this thing called 4 Weeks in the Trenches, this war story of a violinist. And this looks at what is World War I like on the Eastern Front, Austrians versus the Russians versus from the Austro-Hungarian perspective. It's a free audiobook or ebook if you're curious about what it's like. That's kind of an interesting thing. When I taught world history, we'd actually read through that book in class. Anyways, this is a relatively straightforward unit. It runs 3 weeks. Week 1, Imperialism. The other 2 weeks are devoted to the Great War. And that's the goal of this unit. In any case, I hope this unit tour helps. And until later.